Doesn't feel like it's recording.
There it is.
There we go. What is up, podcast land? Welcome to another episode of the 2 Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Cubbler, and before I introduce longtime friend of mine, Colin Thompson, I'm going to first tell everybody where they can get the podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts. That's pretty much where you can hear 2 Dates and a Dash podcast. If you want to learn more about me, Matt Cubbler, you can go to mattcubbler.com. If you want to learn more about my book, a lot of light there, A Brother's Love, a Memoir. It's a book I wrote 14 years ago about my life growing up with my brother, Andy, who sadly passed away in 1989 in a car accident. He was autistic and had a severe stutter. And it's just our life growing up in the 1970s and 80s and the struggles we overcame and that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in a good, heartfelt, truthful story about my life, that's a great book to pick up. You can get it at Amazon. You can go order it on the website itself. So without further ado, my man, Colin Thompson. What's up, Bubba?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
How are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a whirlwind 2020 for all of us, but to be able to work in 2020 is and the job that I love the most and always wanted to do was unreal, man. It really was. Thanks for having me on.
Well, here's the deal, people. Colin Thompson is a tight end for the Carolina Panthers, and I've known Colin since he was probably a senior in high school, if not his freshman year at Florida, before he went to Temple. So we're affiliated through the Maxwell Football Club and a couple other of his friends, Fran Walsh, and then Ryan Greiser, who Ryan was somebody I mentored, and he also actually worked for me at one point in time. But we're all interconnected. And Colin's story, as you're going to find out, is one of persistence, being consistent and persistent. And at some point in time, when you're able to bang down that door, and you do enough good things in your life too, if you associate yourself with a lot of good people and you continually stay involved in their life and don't just use them for things, good things ultimately happen for you. So Colin, I always ask the same question to everybody, and it always, even though I know your story and I know everything about you, these people listening do not. And how people view themselves is often a lot different than maybe I may view you or someone else who Googles you or Wikipedia's you and sees who you are and they have an opinion of you. So I ask everybody the same question so we can really start from an honest place from the guest point of view. Who is Colin Thompson?
Wow, that's a heavy one.
Wow. Intentionally.
I love it. Then I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, man, I'll be thinking about this in bed tonight, like, oh man, did I say the right thing? Usually I'm the person that's not lost for words. As the people that know me are on this, I've done a little bit of everything in media, but who am I? I would say this, and I was thinking back to, what I would say if I speak to high school teams or I speak to whatever. I was actually thinking about this today, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll talk about this today with Matt. But I'm someone who, in my profession, has always learned from others' mistakes. And I think that just goes back to being a coachable person and being really self-aware of what's going on around you. And I think that self-awareness has allowed me to see 3 steps ahead. Don't have all the right answers, that's for darn sure, but to see what is coming. And again, this is in my world of the football, just monster media, obviously playing, everything that comes with it. I coach. So someone who's coachable, someone who has a ton of passion, and someone who wants to fully integrate in whatever they're doing. And that all really now for me has become football because of how much the game has grown off the field. And we're going to hear I'm playing for the Carolina Panthers now and all that cool stuff that comes with that. But before that, there was a struggle on the field, but a lot of new positions and some fun and some success off the field when it comes to media. I'll say this, let me back this up. I'm going on my rant here.
It's good. It's your show, bro.
A part of the story, we got to tell my story somehow. So we'll kind of go jump into the middle here. When I got cut by the Giants, I had emergency appendectomy the night before. And training camp was going well. I was on pace. I went undrafted to the Giants. Training camp was going solid, struggling with the playbook a little bit, struggling with the speed of the game. I went undrafted from Temple, but probably slotted to be the practice squad tight end, which is, sign me up. I'll do that the rest of my life. It's great living. And you get to do what you love other than play, which stinks, but it's a great job nonetheless. And I wake up the next morning after our first preseason game against Pittsburgh. I played 5 plays, really didn't get hit or anything. I woke up in New York and my stomach was on fire and I had no idea what was going on. My fiance, Sydney, is a rock star. She's running me around New York City. We're taking laxative, which is like the worst thing to do if you have an appendectomy. I'm, just sitting on the toilet, like trying to figure out what is going on. Do I need to pull the trigger to throw up? What type of situation are we going through right here? Like excruciating pain. This was my first day off in training camp. We have friends in New York City and we're staying at like a little timeshare that they rent or whatever. And I was like, this is so great. We got a whole plan in New York, playing for the Giants. Like I played my first NFL game. I finally did it. I could sleep forever. Say at least I played an NFL preseason game. So I get rushed over on an Uber. The guy's stopping in the tunnel the whole way back to the Giants facility in New Jersey and East Rutherford. I'm dying. I'm telling the trainers, I'm like, I'm coming in with my fiance. I'm in a ton of pain. They're like, oh, whatever. So long story short, end up being rushed to the hospital. If I'm not a Giant, my appendix burst. There's no two ways about it. They rushed me right to the front of the line, and the doctor comes running in. He's got mustard on his shirt from lunch. He's our team doctor. He's like, CT, I'm so sorry. I was at lunch with my wife. Like I said, mustard stains. And he's like, I'll be ready for surgery in 10 minutes. I just got to clean up. No problem. Going to surgery, come out the next day. Or whatever, a couple hours later. And, everyone's sitting there. My fiance, my tight end coach, Kevin Gilbride Jr., who was also my tight end coach with the Bears, coached at Temple. His dad is Kevin Gilbride, senior Giants offensive coordinator, Houston Oilers head coach, successful football family, and we're friends.
He's with the XFL New York team now, right?
His dad was.
His dad was.
Yeah, his dad was. Kevin took a year off, but he's getting back into it this year. And Kevin's there, and I'm like, well, all right, well, hey, man, I'm laying in bed. I'm not running around getting hit right now, so all that's good. And take a breather from camp, and they'll, hey, listen, 2 weeks, you'll be fine, come back. So, okay, no big deal. I go to my room, watch Netflix all day. They're sending me meals. Everything's good. I go in the next day. I'm in the training room. They're asking how I'm feeling. I wasn't feeling the best. It's not the most fun surgery. Pretty sore. Can't really stand up too tall or bend over too much. Couldn't really use the facilities without discomfort. And assistant GM, Kevin Abrams, I think it was, taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, just pop in the office real quick. And I just talked to Kevin for 30 minutes. We're just kind of BSing, talking about the game, talking about how crazy this is, how this rarely happens, right? Finally get my shot in the league. Kevin's like, hey, man, sits me down. He's like, hey, man, we're going to cut you. I was like, what? Wait, what? When did we just talk for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just BSing, talking about how crazy this is in the league and the tight ends and what they're going to do. So we're going to cut you. We need the numbers for camp. And I understand that. I'm a body that is on the roster and they need 90 men. Why not? Okay, great. Well, we're going to bring you back in 2 weeks. All's good. Well, they never brought me back. And I was devastated. I gave everything I had. And like I talked about, someone who's all in, that's somebody I've always been. Became great friends with all the cafeteria staff. I still am in contact with them. Murph, security. I mean, it was an unreal thing. All my family came to every training camp practice. The coaches got to meet my family. It became very tight-knit thing. And actually Temple rang through the hallways there because this guy named Matt Rule coached with a majority of this staff. Let's see what year that was for Coach Rule. Probably 2012, 2011 season, right after they got off of the Super Bowl. And Temple tough, they're screaming down the hallways. You have Evan Ingram, who's a first-round pick tight end, and then you have me, who's the undrafted guy. He's an All-American. I was honorable mention. Was the American Athletic Conference. I had caught 3 passes. I just blocked a ton, and I think a couple of coaches threw me some votes because I blocked so much. Whatever. Long story short is I had such a tight knit with so many people. It was so strange for a professional level to have that many friends when it's such a close, and it's such a quick turnaround. I got there in May, maybe June, and this happened in late August, mid-August. So I got cut, and I'm like, well, now what? What am I going to do? I need to train. I need to get back into it. And Jeff Collins just took the job at Temple. What a blessing that was, because Jeff really truly believes in keeping former players around the program. So I would take the train to Temple on a consistent basis, 5 days a week. I said, I'm going to make my life a 9-to-5 job, just like the NFL. I'm going to get on the train at 8 a.m., get there at 9, train for 3-4 hours, watch film, be around the scouts that come into the building that watch the former team, be around Coach Ed Foley, who was still there, and the tight end coach.
He's never going. I think they're going to bury him at the field there.
He'll come back someday. He's there. He's in Carolina right now. He's assistant special teams coach.
Good for him. Good for him. But he was at Temple for like 28 years or something.
He's the best. He's such a valuable piece to that campus, and he's still a Philly guy, and he's the man. We talk every day. I get to work with him every day, and he's the reason why I'm in the league. So what a blessing that is. So I made a 9-to-5 job out of it. I said, you know what, man, I got to be more involved. I got to do something. I got to fill this schedule because it's not enough for me. I went from extreme, 16-hour work days during training camp to walking around Doylestown, Pennsylvania, my hometown, for miles because I wasn't allowed to run because of an appendectomy. And I was devastated. All that training and hard work I did over the summer went away. So fast forward to really what I was getting at for all this was I created my own podcast that is now the Not For Long podcast. And it's been on and off for a couple of years now. I never thought it was a good look to do a podcast while joining a team and not have my feet underneath me with that team. So my feet are underneath me a little bit here with Carolina. I signed another 1-year deal. By far, by no means that mean I made it, but I can start a podcast now and have confidence that that's not going to affect my stature on the team, I think. So long story short is the NFL stands for Not For Long. And I created my podcast that's called Not For Long. So I got into media. I got into a ton of things off the field. I started the podcast. I've always been a contributor radio shows, and a lot this week because of the Super Bowl, but contributor radio shows. I started doing sideline reporting, color commentary for Temple football games. When Harry Mays, who's a big Philadelphia radio personality and a friend, Harry was playing golf. They slipped on some acorns and he broke his ankle and he couldn't do the sideline reporting anymore. And I don't think they want him in the booth. So I filled in and started doing games for him. Fast forward to week 8, Zach Miller blows his leg out, almost lost his leg and his life, I believe, in New Orleans. He's the Bears tight end. And I went out to Chicago for a workout when I was having a meltdown at Del Valle University, where I run some days before getting on the train to go to Temple. Just like, what am I doing? It's pouring rain. I'm running in the rain. My life sucks. Quote, does not suck at all. I'm extremely blessed, but I'm not in this league. And then I got in Chicago, and then I was there for a year. So I'm all over the place. Who was Colin Thompson? That's the long-winded answer, and that will kick off our podcast. But someone who's all in on everything he's doing.
Well, here's when I think of Colin Thompson.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, this is better. I like this better than me answering that question.
Well, so I've been around a lot of athletes in my career. As you can see by my wall behind me, I've been a bodyguard for 20 some years, some of the most famous people on the planet. And
Tim.
Been around Timmy Tebow, of course. There he is back there on the wall. But I've been around the Maxwell Football Club. And one thing that the Maxwell Football Club, for those of you who don't know what it is the oldest football fraternity in the United States. It is, in our opinion, the most prestigious, behind that one up in New York. They say it's second to that one. We disagree, but it's the only one that includes high school all the way up to the pros. It's basically excellence on the field and in your community is what they celebrate. So I've been in with the club since 1996, and in many different capacities, mostly as the director of security in the last 11 years as a sponsor with Max Out. So, but I've been around a lot of athletes, and there's two different categories of athletes that I've met. There are the ones that God gave them every gift known to mankind, and they were dedicated enough to take that gift and use it to their advantage. And then there's the guys that got just enough talent to be noticed, but needed to have that other component that wasn't related to talent to get to where they wanted to be. And you look at a Ryan Grimes, you look at a Franny Walsh, you look at a Colin Thompson, you look at a lot of guys that have made it, because of the other intangibles that are required. And whether you're talking about being a cop or an entrepreneur or any other business for that matter, where talent isn't necessarily the reason why you succeed, you have to have those intangibles: work ethic, persistence, consistency, compassion, empathy, a desire to integrate yourself into a team environment. You literally have, you have physical gifts. You have the stature, the build, the IQ for football, all those things. But the thing that made you reach your goal wasn't God-given talent. It was a persistency and a consistency and a work ethic and an understanding that if given the right set of circumstances, my body of work and the things that I have, the intangibles, will allow me to be successful. And I think now that you've had your first full year on an active roster, playing football in the NFL, how many plays did you play this past season?
321. My dad says I'm not counting, but it's 321. Thanks, Dad.
That's what dads do. That's what we dads do. I can tell you every one of my daughter's best times in swimming. I can tell you how many All-Americans, what races she got them in. I know everything. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
Because we love our kids. But for me, what I love about you personally, why we connect, is I'm a ham and egger. Yeah. Right? I'm a go to work, take your lunch pail. I'm going to outwork my opponent, whether it's as an entrepreneur or as a mentor, whatever it is. I'm going to be the best because no one's going to fucking outwork me. And if you have that, and I have no talent, like I don't have any specific thing that God goes, anybody can go, well, I can see Matt Cubbler is great at that. Physically, I don't have anything like that. And I'm okay with that. Like that's just who I am. You have both. And when you said early on, you said you're self-aware. And self-awareness is literally the greatest gift anyone can have, because it allows them to see themselves through not only their own internal vision, but how other people see them too. And it's important, especially in the not for long league, how people see you, and being able to adapt yourself to fit in to the very narrow fucking opportunity you had to seize the day. You had to fit into someone else's version or their thought of who you are. And you needed to then look at yourself and go, do I have that? Can I create that? Can I mold myself into this very narrow, specific thing that's going to get me in the door? So that then once you're there, you can start to grow yourself from that, right? You can start to be a little bit more open with your own skill sets, starting your podcast, like the things that you truly want to be. That little sliver of hope, that little opportunity that you were able to self-aware yourself into is the key. And most athletes, and I don't know how, and I'm pretty sure it's probably from your parents' upbringing and just being in a really tight family, and we'll talk about that. Yep. Most athletes don't have the self-awareness because they've had sunshine blown up their fucking ass their entire lives. And no one's ever put them in check. And they've never had to do a self-assessment because failure has really never been part of their equation. So for me, when I look at guys like you and like Ryan Grimes and Franny Walsh and guys that had to put their hard hat on every day in order to find success and then achieve greater success, it's that self-awareness of who am I? What am I good at? What do I suck at? Like, where's my passion? Where's my lack of passion? Like, what are the things I really just don't give a fuck about?
Great point.
Like, and that's what changes the dynamic for most people, is when they finally open up that window in their brain that says, maybe I need to do a self-assessment and honestly ask myself some tough questions. I think that's what changes. And when we had our talks, I don't know, 5 years ago, about how do you were searching for, and this was during your post-appendectomy, and
I was with the Bears. Yeah, let's see. That was 2000. It was like maybe 3 or 4.
Okay. You were searching for that thing, whatever it was. But the fact that you were searching is what allowed you to figure it out.
And it was the opportunity that I knew was coming, and the fear of not being prepared for that opportunity.
Dude,
ate me
totally
alive.
on. That's an honest, dude. That's the one of the most honest fucking answers. That fear, right? Because fear can either stop you dead in your tracks or be the thing that propels you. How
You're
you
right.
use that, how you use it. There's a building block process to handling fear. Because people that don't have the foundational component in their life are the ones that are usually the ones that are going to get stopped in their track because they're afraid of failure.
And that building block would be what? Just preparation, the endless pursuit of prepare. When it
Where did
comes,
you learn that?
my mom.
It's
Yeah.
always one of them. It's always.
I mean, I'm not saying my dad didn't work hard. I mean, my dad, so we'll go inside the look of the family. My dad pretty much co-founded in some sense and started a telecommunications business in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, that his dad started first. He joined, and it's been in business now for, he's not with the company anymore. He's been since, bought out, and it's a small telecom company called Thompson Telephone. Now it's Thompson Networks. It's been in Doylestown for, I don't even know, maybe 30 years, maybe longer. And so, yeah, he worked his butt off, no question about it. But dad was home. Dad cooked dinner. Dad did the wash. And dad would drop us off at school in the morning and then go right into work at 7 a.m. and work from 7 to 5. I begged to stay in an after school program just so I could play more dodgeball, play more football. None of my friends, my core friends, were in after school program. They always went home and got the Xbox and the bikes and whatever. And I just begged every day. It was another 2 hours of sports, and it was another 2 hours of recess with this cool group of people that parents had to work or couldn't get a babysitter or whatever. So it was kind of unique. Now that I look back and I'm pulling back those layers, it was always the same type of parent that'd be picking the kid up from after school. So my dad would be there, and then an unbelievable work ethic. I don't want to get twisted, but my mom is a different beast. Like anybody that knows my mother, she's unreal. Her work ethic's unreal. Get up in the morning, come back to eat breakfast with us, go back, go to work, come back, eat breakfast with us, and then go back to work, drop us off at school, whatever that may be, and then bring us along the way. My brother, who works with my mom now, he went with her every Saturday. My dad, we would go out to lunch with his buddies, and then we'd hang out. I learned that social, mature environment. I mean, you and I sat at the bar for how long at the Maxwell football clubs, and we're able to talk and socialize. And I was 23. So it's a unique skill that I learned, is not the BS, but just to be able to talk to older people. And I've always been drawn to meeting and being friends around older people. I feel like I always learn more. I feel like that always pushed my mind. And it just drawn me into it. More curiosity, more travel, more whatever that may be. So back to my mom, she would the grind is endless. She owns LSL brands. It started as Lace Silhouette's lingerie. She's been in business for 32 years. She didn't go to college. She drove to Trenton, New Jersey, an hour from her house, got on the train in Trenton, went to New York for, I think, 6 years, from the age of 18 to 23, 24, somewhere around there. And then she started her own business. And that was Lace Silhouette's lingerie. So she worked till whatever, get home at 6. My dad would be there to open the lingerie store and get it moving and get it cleaned up and get the lights on. And then my mom would come in at 6:37 and run the business till 10 o'clock at night, and then do it again 5 days a week. So I wasn't around for that in those times. And I think that was in 88 when she started it. But I was able to see that every day, the model of consistency and hard work, and the constant approach of treating people the right way and doing things the right way. Full disclosure on my mom, she has 50,000 unread emails on her phone. She's got 4 different contacts of the same person on her phone. This isn't like you're dealing with some crazily, everything's got to be perfect. Like, she writes emails, they're just bullet points. And now she's got 12 retail stores, maybe 10 retail stores. And then she just bought the Fudge Kitchen, which is a huge staple of the Jersey Shore. For anybody that goes to the Jersey Shore, she just bought all that business from Joe Bogle's, had it going for 50 years. And that was a huge step for her. And that was big. It's right. Her Fudge Kitchen has always been next to her store in Cape May, one of her stores. She's 3 in Cape May, 1 in Princeton. And then for people familiar with Peddler's Village, outside of New Hope, Pennsylvania, between there and Doylestown. She's got $1 million there, it feels like at this point. But so long story short, I learned a ton from my mom. I learned a ton from my dad as well. But when it comes to the grind of work, maybe more socially from my dad, how to be more social and interact and connect and build bridges. And that's how you and I met. And then for my mom, just the resilience and work ethic. And something unique too that our family has done is I probably lived in, I don't know, 12 different houses over the years. So there's no like emotional connection to that home. I'll never leave this home. I'm coming back to this town. There's nothing wrong with that at all. A ton of successful people have had that. But for me, especially in this business, I've been able to live in all these different towns and travel all over and don't feel really attached to anything, in the sense that, yeah, there is a home and that's where my family is, wherever they may be. But materialistic things were not of value. The experience of travel, the experience of the joy you find in your work, that was huge in my family. So I know I rambled on there a bit, but
no,
yeah.
I love that. And it's funny, you talked about the moving around a lot. And for me,
all within 5 miles too, by the way. This isn't like I'm moving, all within from upper Bucks County to middle Bucks County on the same road, 202. So it's a very unique deal.
Well, I lived in Pottstown my whole life, but I'm not gonna lie, we probably lived 15 different places. Mom was single mom, 2 boys, for the first 12 years of my life. So we moved and we lived in a bunch of different low income housing and apartments and different places. But the ending of that journey of moving a lot is that I am adaptable.
Yep.
Like I can go and be somewhere and be at home. Now you're absolutely right. Wherever my mom is home. Wherever my wife and kids are is home. But that can be anywhere for me. Now my wife's a little bit different. She's more of a homebody, more of a the location is very important. Like what is home, the physical structure. For me, home is anywhere on the planet that I'm with my loved ones. But that has allowed me in my career, which has been very not stable, as a law enforcement officer in the military, and it's all chaotic. And I know that I can be anywhere at any time and adapt and become integrated into that community pretty quickly. And, having been a former spy for the military and having worked counterintelligence and counterterrorism, being able to adapt to any environment is key. And being in the sport you're in and the profession you're in, which is professional sports, where, your career may be 2 years, maybe 10 years. You don't know how long it's going to be, but you don't know where it's going to be either. And you've got to have someone like your fiance who is, my wife is, without my wife, first of all, my kids would have never eaten, made it to school, had clothes. Like if I was a single dad, my kids would literally be eating pizza, cereal, probably Captain Crunch, or Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then after that, I don't really know how they would have turned out. But having that rock, let's talk about your fiance a little bit and how you guys met and how she has stayed with you, because you have to have constants in order to stay persistent and consistent. There has to be someone who keeps you grounded, someone who can kick you in the ass when you need it, someone who can call you on your shit, and then someone who can be there when you're having your worst day and your best day. Let's talk about that.
I'll say this too. There's been plenty of people that call me on my crap.
You don't have to cuss, I will.
No, I know. Much as I want to, I can't. I'm not going to. And that's another thing. Like and just being transparent. Like I have my podcast and media. Like you see, I listen to a lot of Barstool Sports, and I love their just openness. Joe Rogan, just open, right? Whether you agree with anything or everything and they say, it doesn't matter. Like they just are open, and I'm open. I'm becoming more open. The media people that I'm working with become more open, but I don't think I'm going to cross the hurdle of the cursing bridge. There's too many young
I'll drop
kids.
them off for you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. But there's always been a lot of people that call me on my crap, which has been great over the years. And I being self-aware enough, I try to avoid not their crap giving, but avoid that to see what's coming with the crap giving and do X, Y, and Z. So that never even comes about. So there's been plenty of people. We have a large family in the sense that we let a lot of people in, friends, family, a lot of friends are now, we call them family, very unique in that sense. And I know I'm not saying that every people don't have that, but it just seems like we always had a lot of mentors, a lot of people around, specifically from my father side of just friends that his college buddies or business or we're very social family in the sense that we're, out to dinner or we're out for happy hour, or it's a very social thing. And I've made a ton of connections from that, which has been very unique and a lot of skill set for me to be able to communicate with older people, which I think is something that you probably don't even think about when you're raising your kid. But I always say it, I grew up on a bar stool. Like I really did. And I learned a lot of lessons from that. So that's one thing, but back to the important stuff with my fiance, Sydney Dupree. So Sydney and she is from Houston, Texas, and she went to the University of Florida to play lacrosse. And just being transparent, I was like, these lacrosse girls are awesome, man. Like, and all the athletes are very close in the University of Florida. Now Temple, it was the opposite.
Did you know that the head coach for the women's lacrosse is from Springford High School?
She is, and she went to Temple.
Yeah.
Mandy O'Leary, and she loved me because I was a Gator and an Owl, and we were able to talk. And she's like, everyone's like, she loves you, like she's very like a quiet to herself coach. She doesn't come out, she socializes, but she's not out with the families. That place, that's unreal. Like I've never seen anything like that. By the way, when it comes to the community of the women's lacrosse, men's lacrosse world, is very tight. Everyone's probably from the same area, just about the Northeast. A couple stragglers from all over the country, like Sydney, but that was a blast for me to be able to follow her career for the last 3 years and get to know those families. And that's something I never would have imagined, but I was able to hang out with parents, make a ton of connections. And then I met, honestly, on this day when I met Cindy that I'll go into, I met probably 6 people that changed my life and that are now very close to me and my family, not just me. So met Sydney, University of Florida. Like I said, being transparent, I love the girls all from the Northeast. I'm like, finally, they just want to, have some beers, have a good time. It's all good, healthy, fun. And I was struggling to find that my first couple of years at Florida. It's an unbelievable place to play football, go to school. I loved it. I would go back, and I'm trying to finish my master's there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to transfer them all over, but that's neither here nor there. So I met Sydney. We're at a party and this girl taps me on the shoulder and she's like, do you want a beer? And I was like, absolutely. I love a beer. You're awesome. And then, we end up talking and hitting it off, and we remained friends there for a couple of months, and it was real social. And then we started dating. I think it was January of 14. So January of 14, let's backtrack. I go to University of Florida from Archbishop Wood High School. I was the number 1 tight end in the country, had an unbelievable, won a mini Maxwell. And just had an unbelievable opportunities to be successful in high school at Archbishop Wood. We won a state title, first in school history. We had, on that team in all age ranges, probably 20 Division I players. And we mercy ruled in the state title, the largest margin of victory. We won 13 straight games, should have won 14, but that's, again, neither here nor there. Go to Florida, play my first year, broke my right foot twice. My second year, broke my left foot. Had a million trials and tribulations before that. They flew me to Nike. We did a million different things to figure out this foot issue. Come to find out, we were just rehabbing wrong, and I wasn't doing the right approach. I didn't know better. I had no idea. That's just poor on them, just looking back. But that's neither here again nor there, and no regrets. And it was in a really bad spot. I played 3 games my 2013 season in Florida. We had a really bad season, and I was out a lot, having a great time and doing well in school. And Florida said, you're done for the season. Well, let me back that up. 3rd game, Tennessee. I remember telling my parents, being like, this is unreal. Like, I just played in the swamp, 95,000 people. It's the best place to play. You're walking home, people are throwing beers at you. You're like, I needed some water. I just played a game, but I appreciate it. They're handing you food. I couldn't even it took me 30 minutes, 40 minutes to walk 3 blocks. It was just bedlam. It was a cool little environment down there. And mom and dad, I'm crying. We had all my family in the house. And I pulled them into my sweet house in Gainesville with, $300 a month to live there. And I'm crying. I made it. I'm here. I'm going to make this in this town. And I'll get to where Sydney comes in here, but I think it's a good part of the story. So I wake up the next morning and my middle of my foot is just bothering me on the left side. Fast forward, I have a navicular stress fracture on the left foot, the Joel Embiid injury. If people remember, that kind of hindered him for 3-4 years, drafting, all that stuff. He didn't play for a while. Now he plays consistently and he's a beast. But Florida's like, your career's over. you know, you should never play football again. Want you to be able to walk around and run with your kids and all this crap. And I was like, get out of here. Like, people have these injuries. Like, can be recovered. So I go see Robert Anderson, the best foot and ankle guy, Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually work with some of his kids now, which is really weird. Like, his actual children, they work for the Panthers, and I thank them every day for their father. So he's like, hey, you're fine. Do X, Y, and Z. Take about 4 or 5 months off. Get your feet back. Get some strength back in that lower body that just has been manipulated, doing nothing really for months, years. Was in boots all the time, crutching to class. It was like 100 degrees, man. I'm just like dying, soaked, sweat. I used to pack like 3 different shirts for school.
Why they call it the swamp?
Literally. So it just was miserable. Like, just, man, like, why me? Like, it was such a pivotal time in my mental state of like, the why me? I don't deserve this. Like, but it was good. I learned to just take it on the chin and keep moving. So your career's over, Colin. You're done. I fought it for months. I met Sydney that fall, right when my career ended. I didn't really know it yet at Florida, and I fought and fought it and fought it. And I ended up just having a time that last semester, like a 0.9 GPA, and just going to women's lacrosse games and just having a great time. I just knew I was done at Florida, and I was miserable, and I was training my ass off. I wasn't really running yet, but I was lifting like a house, and I was just constantly doing stuff, and it made me tougher. I always had a 3+0 GPA, and I was just in a low point in my life. And Sydney was there for me in the beginning, and she was like, I'm not really, just being transparent. She's like, I'm not attracted to this version of Colin. Like, yeah, socially we're having a great time, but like, what are you going to do? And we was a tough point in our relationship where we had a lot of serious conversations. I'm like, I want to play in the NFL. Florida says you can never play a sport at Florida again. I was like, maybe I'll walk on a baseball, I'll just shag balls, or I'll walk on a basketball. Like, that'll be my life, and I'll get in the media or whatever I want to do, become an entrepreneur. And she's like, no, like, you got to go get your dream. Like, what are you doing? You got to bang on this door until it's done. And really, she was the one in the rock that I started talking to at these tough times where Florida says, we don't want you anymore. And that was a devastating thing, because I've never really been anywhere that says we don't want you. I've been told no, but I've always been at least wanted. Right. Pretty much, there's a door. We'll pay for your school, but you're done playing football here. So, like I said, and that's where I'm kind of backtracking that story. 2 years before that, I'm the number 1 tight end in the country. Could have went anywhere, played football just about. And I got nothing, literally nothing. There's no transfer portal this time, but I put out there all my connections. Again, don't burn a bridge. That's from Dad. And nothing, crickets. Walk-on spot at Penn State, walk-on spot at UCF. Montana gave me a scholarship because Marty Morningweg, former offensive coordinator for the Eagles, all over the NFL. Marty's a great, and his son Skyler and I, Minnie Maxwell Award winner. Skyler, Marty went to Montana, but Skyler was my roommate in Florida. He's like, I'm talking to the Montana coach. I'm like, I'm really going to go to Montana? Like, I'm going to Florida? Like, what just happened? Like, what? Like, I was my top 5 was Stanford, Alabama, Florida, Wisconsin, BC. Like, Ryan Day was at BC at the time. I was all in to go there. I have nothing. So my fiance Sydney is like, just keep going. You need to you got to grind. You got to get out of Gainesville. You got to get, working. So I ended up going back, and I got an offer from Temple, and the rest was history. But without her, that never happens. That ability to say, you know what, we just been dating for like 5 months, and then you can go to a whole different school, and we're going to continue to date because I think we can have something special here. So that belief in me, that rock of a person, and then she has been there. I mean, that was just the beginning. The emergency appendectomy, I cut my foot open down in Caveman one time. She ran like 2 miles home, sprinted, got a car, went to the ER. Like, I had foot injury. So like, that's not a good thing to cut your foot on glass. Like, just the amount of time she has saved my ass, food poisoning. She is a caregiver at heart. She comes from a family of nurses and doctors, and now she is a doctor. She's a doctor of physical therapy. She graduated from Baylor University. And she's going to be working and doing in-home care, physical therapy. So we can, and not even what her passion is, it's so we can travel and do what we want to do, and I can go play where I want to play, and she can get a job anywhere. So again, her sacrifices for me, and I'm getting around to them now. But I thought I had to paint the picture with the story there. I've been just really endless, and our happiness and joy come and travel, becoming the same things that I grew up on. she came from a family where there was, a couple homes in the same area of Houston. And we went to the one, they traveled a ton. I shouldn't say that, but I guess compared to my family, I think things are just valued a little bit differently, right? Which is fine. And she's just, boom, she's lived here this whole fall while I was in Carolina, drove an hour every day to Manahawkin from Cape May 5 days a week to work, again, sacrificing for me so I can go. So we lived apart. We've been long distance for 7 years now. Our 7-year, dating anniversary was at the end of really January. So we're getting married now in June. And yeah, she's unreal. She's unreal. And we have just a ton in common. We love all the same things. She knows the game of football. She knows hoops. She knows everything. So for me, it was everything I wanted to. And yeah, I got to keep up with her because I'm an idiot sometimes, like we all are. And you got to be, she's just a rock star. So I can't really match her.
The best part is when you find that person, right? Especially when you've put through the ringer, right? The one that she's been proven solid. And I've been married to my wife now coming up on 24 years, been together 27. And I'm not an easy person because I don't have plans. Like I have plans, but my plans are all in the ether, right? They're not real. They're not tangible. They're not written down. I don't have a vision board. I have nothing, right? Every day I wake up and I go, how can I change the world?
We got to touch on vision boards too when we're done this story. Sorry, continue.
So for me, everything is in my head and it's just there. There's no thought behind it really on how it's going to get put out in the working, but it always does. Like it always comes out and it works. I don't know why or how, but it always does. And I always have 13 moves ahead. I just don't know how I'm getting to that 13th move. Like I don't necessarily know how the give and take.
It's going to happen. It will happen.
Right. The ebb and flow of life changes. So I'm always on this. I'm always willing to adapt. And I think that's part of it. But that's not easy when I married the most anal retentive structured human being on the planet. So we are definitely yin and yang.
Yep.
But we are co-equal in our passion for what we find the most value in, which is our family, which is being good human beings, which is being people that produce something positive for the world. And we made an early decision when we got married and then a month later got pregnant. So we had a really quick turnaround with my daughter, but we had a plan that we were going to be parents. Like at the end of the day, our connection, our love for one another is so strong that we could focus solely on making sure that the next generation of Cubblers are out there becoming great human beings. And it was a plan. And that was one of the few things we really planned collectively was how to be a good mom and dad and how to parent and intentionally put values and morals and principles in our children's lives so that the thing that you just, and I think whether or not your parents were as focused intentionally on what they were doing for you as we are for our kids, when you tell me you grew up on a bar stool, there was an intention behind that, right?
Yeah. And
your dad wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
That
people see that as a negative, but I saw a lot of different, I saw a lot of things, a lot. And in good places too. It's not like we're at dive bar.
You weren't sitting at some dive in the middle of Albany, right? So, but for me, like my son, and I told my son, I said, listen, I am your biggest cheerleader. I'm your biggest supporter. I'm your biggest fan. I said, but I'm also going to be the biggest pain in your ass ever because you don't have the luxury of fucking up my last name. That's not happening. So I intentionally need you to be aware of everything I'm telling you. And my son, his point, he's 18 now and he's going off to college next year. And he's like, Dad, I want to thank you for not being my best friend. I said, okay. And he goes, because if it wasn't for you teaching me all the values of being a man, of having respect for others, of having responsibility and accountability in my life, and not allowing me to just be whatever that moment was, and that's good enough, I wouldn't be where I am today. And same thing, my daughter's pretty much said the same thing. And that's not every parent can do that. And that's not the plan for every parent. And my way isn't the only way, but it was the only way that I knew within my skill set how to ensure that I created two human beings that go out into the world and produce positive results for the world, not just for themselves. And I think for you, you're a culmination, and I tell my kids that you're the very best of me and your mom, because we put our very best into you. We didn't come at you with half.
No, and I think you're always like, we always say like, oh, you know, my brother's a little bit more of this or he's a little bit more of that. But yeah, you're a production. I think the one thing that popped into my head, or you're a culmination of your parents. But we were having this discussion the other day. My mom's like, the rule was I always had to be home for dinner. I could always go back to work, but your dad made the rule is we have to have dinner as a family. And people talk about that all the time, right? That's a mainstay when it comes to quote unquote good parenting. Is like, we're all going to sit down at the table together every night. Now, obviously some nights mom's going to work, dad's going to work, whatever. Dad was in Rotary growing up, again, very social family, giving, you know, very philanthropic family. We worked at a bunch of Salvation Army stuff. We went down on Christmas Day and always did something, you know, so I was very blessed to have that be a value of my parents, right? If it's not a value of your parents, probably won't be a value of you. I mean, you may find it along the way, but unless you play college football and you're picking up trash once a week because you didn't go to class or you whatever, you may not know that. And we did a bunch of philanthropic stuff at Florida and Temple and the NFL, which is really cool. But I wanted to touch on the vision board.
Yeah.
And that goes back to parenting. You know, again, I love this talk because I'm not here without my parents. I've made it crystal clear. Fiance, parents, immediate family, friends. Again, I've said that group's pretty big. It's probably 30, 40 people, maybe a little bit bigger. Add some coaches, you're betting probably 60. That's a village. And that's what it takes to get someone into the NFL. It really, truly does. And then that person needs to drive the bus a little bit, obviously. But the vision board. So when I was growing up, my mom's always write things down. You got an issue, write it out. You got a great thing going on, write it out. Write how your day was going. So I have a couple journals throughout my life that I've kept. Some are 4 days long, some are 50 days long. Some are, I don't think I ever got up over 100, but they're all like usually coming from bad times in my life. Like I started writing a journal when I was sitting in my single cot bed at University of Florida with a broken foot, and everyone's out having a great time and playing football, and I'm just miserable for like months. And that's all negative, right? But the one positive that came out of a vision board, there's a million of them, but I'll never forget this. It's so crazy. So wild. When I was growing up, I was a big Jeremy Shockey fan. He's the reason why I wanted to play tight end. He's the reason why I wanted to wear number 80. I'll never forget this. I was in a CYO All-Star game in Philly, and I wore number 80 at playing center and tackle. You know, they didn't care. Wear whatever number you want, Colin. But when I couldn't wear that number when I played for my team. Shout out to the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Romans. And so I had a Jeremy Shockey picture of Jeremy with his NYPD hat on, I think, and he's all jacked up, you know, and or another picture of him like carrying a bunch of players from the Detroit Lions into the end zone. And I had a picture of Jay Cutler. I don't know why. Antonio Gates. I mean, not that, but Jay's a quarterback. Not a quarterback. Jay was a quarterback, and he was wearing a Bears jersey. It's crazy. So Shockey with the Giants, Jay's with the Bears, and I think I had a Carolina Panther up there too. I forget. It could have been Shockey again with Carolina. And I always like number 80. But at Wood, the good tight ends were 84. At Temple, all the blocking tight ends that came before me were 86. A couple of guys did, so I wore 86. And it kind of went away. So fast forward, I am just got signed by the New York Giants. Obviously a huge Jeremy Shockey fan as a kid. I was able to meet him, Tim Lewis, who went to Penn Ridge with my mother, sat behind my mother in homeroom. Lewis, her last name was Leahy. He used to shoot spitballs in her hair. They were great friends. And Tim was one of the only black kids in the school, which is a whole nother thing we can get into about how my family are not racist. I think that's just straight up. It's a straight up way and a blessing that I was able to have when a lot of families that I went to school with, there's some undertones of it, and we can get into we don't have to get into all that, but that just popped in my head as another blessing for what I do. And, you know, just being open-minded family. My brother's a gay man. So we have a very open-minded family.
And that is a blessing. We'll just touch on that real quick. Is in today's climate,
Well, hold on. Let me just finish the Giants story
division
quick,
one.
and then we'll tackle this. So Jeremy Shockey, number 80. I signed with the Giants, and I'm like, I don't care what number they give me, man, but like I love Jeremy Shockey, always had. He's a nut too. I've grown to got to like know of him, and I'm like, yeah, maybe not the best role model, but hey, I did as a kid. I watched a lot of football. It's all good. He was a great player. And I walk into my Giants the locker, and 80 in blue was hanging there. I was like, holy crap, man. Like, this is wild. Like, my mom's like, go to the vision board, write things down, exactly what you want. So I had all NFL pictures up there. I'm a huge Flyer fan. I've always wanted to play in the NHL too, but football just took me a little bit farther. And I was like, holy crap, man. I played for the Bears where Jay Cutler was at. I played for Carolina where I had a picture of Shockey at, and I played for the Giants. So it was really weird about like visualization. Like, remember my dad teaching me as a kid, like skills of like visualizing success. This is at 10, 12 years old. So these gifts of like my parents gave. And like, I remember like my parents reading The Secret of like, and that was like a huge thing about like just being positive. So I had all these gifts that my parents gave me. And you know, you look back when I have all these interviews and you unpeel some layers, and we've unpeeled the most I've ever said about any of my personal life here. So that's really, really cool. But great parents, visual boards has always been a thing. But I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
So yes, but it's a blessing. You know, for me, I have a gay brother I've been through a lot of the wars with him, and he went through and the tormenting and just the nastiness. And I almost got suspended from school and just all the crap that he went through. And he's such a great guy. It's a blessing to have him in our family.
I think the cool part about life is that if you have, and I've mentored hundreds of kids from every walk of life, every race. Some gay, some straight, some women, men, girls, boys, whatever.
Yep.
There's a constant that I believe is true, is that when you have at least one loving parent who is intentional in how they raise you and how they instill in you certain qualities, that's a key component to every success story I've ever been a part of. Is there's at least one person, whether that person's a grandmom or whatever, that one person who ensures, right, whoever that is, that ensures that you are the person you are intended to be by God. And that I help foster that and build that and grow that into a contributing member of the human race when you become a man or a woman in an adult form. And that's that there is an intentional process to that. And when you have parents like you have, and a mom like I had, and then ultimately a stepdad, who made sure that you had a vast array of experiences in your life. You had a vast array of opportunities. They put you in positions and places and in environments that are not necessarily the safest normal place that you would find yourself in.
I grew up in Key West, Florida, at the bar with my dad and mom, and traveling and eating, and we traveled a ton, man.
And you saw everybody. You met people. You met from every walk of life. And each one of those, whether it's a person that loved you and stayed in your life, or a person you met one day, or a person that you loved and died, that person died. Every person that comes in your life has a value to your story, whether it's a positive or a negative, whether it's a girl that you broke your heart or the one that stole it and kept it. Like, they all have a value in your life, in your full story. And that what you learned from that breakup, from that heartbreak, helped you identify what you found in your fiance, right? Those are all, everything is a teachable moment. Everything is a part of your growth as a person to ultimately, for you to then give. And I think why you're drawn to talking to older people is because they have a lifetime of opportunities and moments and stories that they can impart on you. And it's great to talk to your boys, but you're all pretty much at the same goddamn spot. So
yeah, we've all done that. Yeah, we've all done the same thing together. So that's a good point.
What I tell kids is that when I tell you that girl that just broke your heart and you thought she was the one and you're 16 years old and you're going to marry her and spend the rest of your life, that's probably not true. It may be, but the odds are it's not. And if she broke up with you, don't look at it as the worst day of your life. Look at it as the greatest teaching moment of your life. Like, what did I learn?
You use the word value.
Yeah.
Right. There's no negative. There's no negative thing that happens to you. There's going to be tough days. I mean, listen, I'm the first one to tell you that there's been some really dark, low days, but the word you use, value, is just so spot on. And it's tremendously said. And I want to touch on, having a gay brother. And for those out there, that would be like, and my dad said plenty of people saying like, what is it like having a gay son? My dad said it's the best gift we could ever get, because we see a whole new side of this world that's starting to become more and more uncovered, because more people are more comfortable being gay, right? How many people of your generation that were probably gay, but it wasn't accepted by anybody, right? So I don't know the numbers, but I know this. It has been the best gift for a family. And he's, first of all, a great human being and an unbelievable human. In addition to, like you saying, when you let your kids go out in society, an unbelievable person that makes a lot of people happier and does a lot of good. But to anybody that would be against having a gay son or a gay daughter, I understand the change, and change is tough. And that has been the best thing that my parents taught me. Like, change is good, right? We moved a ton. We did a lot of things. We traveled. We had new friends, but it's been an unreal gift. My brother played with Barbies when he was 1 year old. He picked pink and purple at 6 months old. And my parents said, maybe our son's gay. And I was shooting hoops and Curry played with Barbies. The only thing we had in common is we played James Bond together on Xbox. We loved ice cream and waffles. And we never shot a hoop, one basketball together. We never played hockey together. We never did anything. We played baseball together. Curry would take a pitch. The only time he got on base is the ball hit him. And then he was fast as shit. I just cursed. There you go. And he would run around the bases.
You're allowed to have one S-bomb.
There you go. And he would run around the bases and I was so happy for my brother, because I knew the internal struggle he was going through because he wasn't accepted. There was a kid that went go up to him in lunch and he would like play with his hair and stuff. And the one day I saw him and just lit up and went right to I didn't even touch him. I said, or I forget what he would do. I don't know. He just always was like getting on my brother. And I'm not even going to say his name to give him justice, but I would go down and I went to the guidance counselor. Like, I don't care if I'm a tattletale. I can care less. This is 7th grade. My brother and I are 11 months, 3 weeks apart. We're Irish twins. He's older than me. And I went to the guidance counselor and I said, either you're going to handle this or I'm going to handle this. And again, a seventh grader saying that to a grown man, that would never happen. But again, probably being able to do that I've been put in those situations before of confronting older people in a respectful way. And I just said, either you are or I am. And if you handle them, I'm going to jam them into a locker and lock them in there. And they handled it. And the kid, said it never happened and life moved on. But the amount of tormenting and the struggle that he went through and how it affected him. He was a 6-time All-American swimmer. You understand that. Everyone's like, wait, 6 times? Yeah, his numbers are qualified 6 times to be an All-American. He owns.
You don't get that.
Yeah.
Per event.
And he, owns, if he trained, he never trained. He owns, I think, there's another S-bomb. He owns every, I get fired up talking about this because I'm really passionate about it. He owns every pool record, in Bucks County to Harrisburg, just about, probably give or take. But, long story short is the open-mindedness that I was given at a young age, because of travels, because of experience and being exposed to it is, really shaped me for who I am today. And, I wouldn't be the person I am or the man I am today. We talked about parents, talked about vision boards. We talked about all these great things today. And it's I'm happy we get to touch on having a gay brother and then a family that was open to being close to a Black family when they were growing up, and, got to hear stories about people throwing rocks at them and all these different things. And, I have some of my best friends are Black or they're gay or whatever. And it's been a tremendous thing for me as a human. And I look back and smile knowing that was really all my parents, because, your parents handle all that growing up.
That's awesome, man. And I think it's important for people. And the reason why I love my show is because it's not a show about anything in specific. It's about life. It's about how do you live your life? It's 2 dates and a dash: the date you're born, the date you die, and the dash is the life that you live. And that dash is important. And I think the great way to finish up the show, the last 10 minutes or so, is to talk about, I guess, specifically Coach Foley and Coach Rule, and how instrumental they were in your growth from a collegiate athlete to now a professional NFL athlete, And I'll give you my one Coach Rule story. So when he won the Maxwell Award as the Coach of the Year, and then he ended up making my statement not make any sense because he ended up leaving. But I said to him, I said, Coach, I want to thank you for being one of the few that didn't leave for the next great thing that happens to a Temple coach when they do well. Now, granted, he did stay one more year. But he got us in there as far as our technology in the strength room, and it opened up some doors. My Matt Rule moment opened up some doors so that, I can, Jeremy was the strength coach there at the time. Now he's
in Carolina now.
Yeah, he's with you guys now. And we got into Temple, and we had, some players that used it that are now with pro teams that, we're with the Steelers now because of a former player at Temple. And so I'm thankful to Coach Rule for that opportunity that came from a conversation we had at a bar at the Maxwell's when I thanked him for not leaving. And, I think, and knowing as many coaches as I know, G.A. Mangus and the guys that have been around that we're connected with through the Maxwell Football Club, and you see how everything works in concert with each other. So when a Matt Rule, who was an assistant at Penn State, and Jeremy, who was a strength coach at Penn State, and then Matt Rule gets his head coaching job at Temple, and Jeremy goes out to become the head strength coach at Temple, and Jeremy goes to Carolina and brings his coaching staff with him. Like there's always this, we started together young and as undergrads or grad assistants or whatever their role was when they first start, those connections you make at those early stages, when guys matriculate up and become head coaches somewhere, they bring those people that were with them on that journey with them. And that's how college coaching and pro football coaching happens, those connections. And I would argue that we probably wouldn't be having this conversation today about Colin Thompson, the NFL football player, if it wasn't for those connections that you made at Temple with Coach Rule and Coach Foley.
I'll start here. I hope I can hit back on all the things I thought about while you were articulating that, which was awesome. So we were in high school and Temple offered, and we laughed at it. Myself and Coach Steve Devlin, who's now defensive coordinator, your sinus, won 5 or 6 state titles at Wood, a very successful coach, won many Maxwell awards, and a bunch of players that won mini Maxwells and all the great things that Steve's done. And Coach Devlin, he's changed my life. And we laugh. We're like, get out of here. The program wasn't anywhere where it is now, or where it was when, Coach Rule was there. And so fast forward, Temple was my one offer really other than Montana when I transferred. And I was like, I guess I'll go here. And Coach Rule was awesome. He's like, I'm going to give you as much time as you need to recover. I'm going to give you every resource in the world you need. And you want to play for us, we'll give you a scholarship. I delayed because I wanted something bigger. And it was like almost like an ego thing. But best thing that ever happened to me, I found a PT there that saved my career in Joel Roth. And that's all because Coach Rule valued that side for coming from professional sports and just not having an ego and just being open-minded. That's how you guys met, right? Like he was talking to some guy at the bar, tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, Matt, I'm Matt Cubbler. Here's this awesome thing. And now it's in the weight room and now it's in the pros. So to answer your question, what did Coach Rule and Coach Foley do for me? They taught me how to work and how the right way to work. And there is a right way to do things all the time. How you do everything is how you do anything. And, I do it in my life now. I prepare for my podcast like I prepare for NFL football games. I prepare for NFL football games no different than I prepared in college. And it may sound crazy, but I'm constantly learning and evaluating. I'm not saying that this is the max of what I do, but I prepare for college games just like pros because I'm constantly evaluating myself, not other people, not other players. The best thing that Coach Rules that hit me, I would say the best thing, the thing that hit me the hardest is it's all about us and how you function, how you prepare, how you look, how you watch film. So I watch a lot of film of me, individual drills, practice. I don't really watch a ton of film of other teams. I watch film, of course, to learn tendencies and etc. But I used to drown myself in film from other teams, and I would be seeing ghosts out there, and really I would regress as a player. So now I watch more individual drills of anything, like how's that step, how's that hand placement, how's my footwork, how's my core, how's this, and then again, the reassessing as a human always. And then I think another thing is being accountable, being your hardest critic. Like, every game, what did I do well, what I didn't do well, and what do I need to improve on that week? I started doing it every day, that practice. Then I would do it in every meeting. And then I would do it in every rep of a lift, where you're just constantly evaluating yourself, plus or minus, plus or minus. That goes back to Mike Carey, the great Central Bucks West coach under Pettin, that came to us at Wood, and I got graded everything plus minus. And so to answer this question, it's everything I am now is because of them. I am embodied everything that they do. And that starts with Coach Foley's unbelievable work ethic, the hardest working coach I ever been around. We would have practice in the morning at Temple, and we would be there from, I don't know, whatever. Say you're in the building by 7, you're out by 1. And then you go to class all day. And then when class would end, even the 8 o'clock class that ended, the 5 to 8 class, we would be back, and you'd have to watch film with Coach Foley every night. And we had a couple players that didn't do well on their tight end test, so I'd have to be in there doing the tight end test with them. So every night we worked till 9 o'clock at night, from 5 to 9 or 8 to 9, 10. So constantly working through the event, not up to the event. There's no such thing as hay in the barn. Always going to work through the event, and the constant what's next mentality. And before I get into that, just a recap for them, it's like, or I'll just get into it now. The what's next mentality is good or bad, always stay the same. No, we don't look at scoreboards. When I was at Temple, if you watch the Temple field goal block team, they go to block it. They don't turn around and see if it went to the uprights, because when you look at the scoreboard in life, or, a football team, it changes you, right? You should watch your film and never know whether you're up 30 or down 30. And that consistency in life and that model, this goes into your approach. And it's really, so the what's next mentality, he still does that at Carolina. It's all about us. It's what he always does at Carolina. He hasn't changed. I think he's become a little more calm. Not that he wasn't before, but college is way different. You're worried about kids going to class and whether they're going to check in to eat, But, as we wrap up here, what have they done for me? I've changed my mindset. It's the best thing in the world going to Temple University and running into them. And it was just a belief and just believing, okay, this is what we're going to do, leap of faith, and the discipline, the mindset of being in the moment, the mindfulness practice, all of that stuff of kind of being in your seat and being really your hardest critic at all times. Yeah, I just said about 15 different things, but they're all pouring in, man. It's unreal leadership. I'm getting texts from agents and people and friends of mine from him at the Senior Bowl. Look at this. I love the way he runs practice. I love the way he does things. And he's constantly evaluating himself. He's a big reader. He's a role model of mine, and we're friends and colleagues, and he's my head coach. And same with Coach Foley. They'll both be at my wedding. So, yeah, really interesting relationship with them both. And I'm blessed to have them there, because I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
One last question, and we'll wrap this up. So one thing I think there always has to be, if you're not an internally aware, like I'm hyper aware of who I am. Like I don't need another person to tell me anything about myself that I don't already know, that I haven't experienced through trials, tribulations, turmoil, successes, whatever. I'm very hyper aware, and I'm super critical of myself always. And I think you are too, but we all have one person that we don't want to disappoint.
He's one of them for me. Coach Rule and Coach Foley. More Coach Rule, but I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah.
But I think that's important to have.
Yeah.
Because like I've been mad at my kids. I've disciplined them, and they all, both of them to a T, will say the only time that it really bothered them when I was mad was when I would say I was disappointed.
Yeah, always.
And I have that, like I have a couple people in my life that I don't want to ever disappoint.
And I would say this, for them, they're my football people I don't want to disappoint. Right. I have personal, my mother, my father, my fiance, yeah.
But that's, I think when you know that, when you know that there's that component to your performance, your effort, your professionalism, your personal life. Like when you look at your life in this full circle, where are the people that are watching you with anticipation and with hope and with joy and your biggest cheerleaders, biggest fans, and your biggest foot in the ass? That those are the people, and I think that's a lesson for everybody, is you have to have that person you're unwilling to disappoint.
That's a great point. It really is. I mean, that's deep, right? But it's so true. And Coach Rule's always kept tabs on me. This is just a selfish thing. I've noticed. You want to coach. You need a job and kick out. And Baylor. I'm not ready to coach yet, Coach. Well, are you sure? Okay, keep me posted. Or what's next? How's your feet? What's going on? Constantly keeping in touch. That goes back to the connections thing that we talked about. Why you and I are here today talking. But I'm not here talking to you today without those two guys. Really not. And I don't want to let them both down. Foley and I have maybe become like almost more personal in a way because he's not the head coach of the team. He's assistant special teams coach, and we're able to be closer. We've always been extremely close. But for Coach Rule, no, when it comes to my profession here, there's no one more I would be so afraid to let down. And that's in my work. That's helped me become a better pro. And I think what he did in Temple is like, you never know where he's going to be around the corner, and you didn't want to miss that one rep or do something not the right way. And that may sound like, he's not there, I'm not going to do the rep. No, but there's something about that. Like you're saying, that fear of failure, that fear of not being prepared, the fear of not turning over that next stone. And that's all from what I learned at Temple from my parents, but primarily when my football profession from Temple, they just know how to do things right. And that's why Coach will be successful for years in the NFL or whatever he wants to do.
And I think to finish up there, and the one point, I think the extension of what you just said, when you said you never knew where he'd be and you never want to get caught not giving your best on that one rep. And the reality is that if you shit the bed, he's going to know you didn't do one of those reps. He's going to know that you did. Like, there isn't this, I'm going to get caught mentality. It's this, he's going to know exactly how this happened, because all the things that he's taught you and all the things you've absorbed and all the things that you put into your success plan between your parents and your wood coaches and your coaches at every stop along the way. And then Coach Rule, who gave you that final opportunity when you thought you were done, and then gave you your first real shot in the NFL, where you knew that you had this opportunity to seize the moment, and you did. And I would argue, and I would argue you weren't, granted injury is one thing, but there's a reason why you don't hit your mark at certain points. Some of it's life, but oftentimes life is a preparation buildup, right? So there may have been something missing in that equation that got you to the Giants, that got you to the Bears, that was missing, that didn't allow you to take that next final step and become a true NFL professional on a contracted level where you've actually made it to the league. And I would argue that fear of letting Coach Rule down and letting Coach Foley down and knowing that these are the same people that brought you in when you had nobody.
Yep.
That's a huge thing. And that's human nature. And we as humans are driven to find the easiest route. That's who we are. And that's the genetic makeup of every animal, right? We don't want to have to work hard. We want to find the easiest way to get our food, easiest way to find shelter, easiest way to find fucking happiness. But when you go against that grain and know that I can only become my very best if I go completely in the opposite direction of what nature tells me I'm supposed to be doing, and you put all those people in your life to ensure that you achieve that, that's when you become a Colin Thompson or Ryan Greiser or Frank.
Yeah. And that's when it becomes freeing. I think playing for Coach Rule is freeing because the work's going to be put in. The proof is there. And he always says, like, just let it go, guys. Like, just let it all go. Like, you're going to make mistakes. Like, just make it. And just what's next? Like, make it. What's next? Do well. What's next? Learn from your mistake. Move on. Like, just go. Like, there's no, like, dissertation when you screw up with the coaches under him. It's like coaching point. We'll watch it in film later. So the what's next mentality has got me here. It helped me in the XFL. That's one thing we can talk about. But I was able to go as a pro into this XFL full of some probably immature players and take the most advantage of it with a pro staff and Mark Trestman, who gave us the time to work, and I worked and got better, and I had those reps, and then boom, went right to the NFL with them. So no, it's been a journey, man. And it's been a wild ride ever since you and I met, but I appreciate your support over the years, your mentoring of me from afar and touching base all the time. And I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, man, we're going to close out the show. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk offline, but everybody, thank you. I hope you really took to heart the truth that was said today. You don't get to hear from professional athletes as often as maybe in this environment as you may want, because we all want to see behind the curtain. We all want to see what's this person really like. I worked with Tim Tebow for 4 years, and I can tell you the person you see on TV is exactly the person in real life, that he is that virtuous and genuine. Kurt Schilling, I've had on the show a couple times, for everything that people hate about him, because he's open and he says what's on his mind. He has zero shits to give. He is one of the deepest, most passionate, patriotic, faith-driven human beings I know. So you get a chance when you can have the shows like this and get behind the curtain and look into somebody's personal life and hear from their own heart how they struggled and how they overcame. It makes us people that are just working the 9 to 5 realize that our struggles are the same, no matter whether you're playing in the NFL or you're going to work at Wawa every day. We all have the same struggles. And I just truly appreciate Colin being willing to share with you guys. And I'm always thankful that you're listening and that you're willing to download and subscribe to the podcast and continue listening to everything that I'm putting out there. So everybody, thank you. God bless, and go out and be kind to one another.